When I entered the monastery, my novitiate class was giving two options for work assignments. The first was sitting in the library for the monastery and putting little USPC barcode stickers in every library book and entering all the data for the book by hand. ISBN number, title, author, publisher, publication date, etc. and etc. Book after book after book. I volunteered for the other job as much as I could, which was going into the apple orchard and working, either clearing brush, mowing it, even if the tractor used to mow it was from 1950 and included safety features such as padded seat. I preferred to be in the orchard. And there Abbot Brian taught me an important lesson: light and airflow. If you want an orchard, apples, pears, plums, or a grape arbor to bear fruit, to produce, to survive even, you can't be afraid to prune away what blocks the light and blocks the breath of life, of air. If a tree or a vineyard gets too overgrown, too crowded, too tight, so that light and air can't flow through, you get mold, another disease, blight, and stuff that destroys everything. So in trying to be nice to the plant by letting it grow as it wants, it can die. Maybe not that year, maybe not in 10 years, but eventually. Pruning is important. This week I was reminded of some words of wisdom spoken in 1969 by a young German theologian who had just finished his assignment, basically being the living Google search engine for the fathers of the Second Vatican Council. In the 1960s, when we had our last ecumenical council, there was no internet, there was no Google. So if you wanted to find a document or a quote that was written 50, 100, 300 years ago, you needed to find somebody who had read it and remembered where it was at. And there was a young German man who was tasked with that job. He had an obscenely brilliant memory. And when he was asked about the future of the church, this little German priest said, "Forgive as I read. The future of the church can and will issue from those whose roots are deep and who live from the pure fullness of their faith. It will not issue from those who accommodate themselves merely to the passing moment, or from those who merely criticize others and assume that they themselves are infallible measuring rods. Nor will it issue from those who take the easier road, who sidestep the passion of faith, declaring false and obsolete, tyrannous and legalistic, all that makes demands upon man, that hurts them and compels them to sacrifice themselves." He continued, "To put it more positively, the future of the church, once again, as always, will be reshaped by saints, by men, that is, whose minds probe deeper than the slogans of the day, who see more than others see, because their lives embrace a wider reality, unselfishness, which makes them free, is attained only through the patience of small daily acts of self-denial. This little German priest who spoke of the need to prune yourself first, but also the importance not to forget to prune away, sadly, even from the church, those who would cloud the light of light, who would stifle the breath of life from the Spirit and from God, would eventually move on to have that supreme task. He would become, as people would call him, Rome's Rottweiler, when he headed the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith. All of us know him probably more famously when he put on the papal tiara as Pope Benedict XVI. But in his wisdom and in his words, I think we get great message, a great lesson, which is that we can't be afraid to prune away for the sake of bearing fruit, for the sake of the gospel and the health of the plant, both ourselves, as we first and foremost must remove what is wrong in us. As then Joseph Ratzinger said, the church grows from saints. We must make ourselves those saints. We must grow in holiness, rooting out what is unnecessary and evil in our own lives, our own actions, and our own hearts. We must be pruned first. Then we can prune those around us, and we must. Correct, out of love. I can't help but think of an early episode of Modern Family. In hearing St. John today talk about love, I'm reminded of an episode where Gloria, the stepmother, has a conversation with her stepdaughter. Gloria looks at Claire and goes, "Why don't you love me? Why? And Claire's looking with confusion, like, I've never said a bad word to you. And Gloria goes, exactly, you don't fight. You never fight. Love is not always agreement. Love, especially Christian love, is helping people do the hard thing that is best for them, for their family, for the church, and for the world. True love compels us at times to fight, to say harsh things out of love. I know my father and my mother have done it to me on many an occasion. In fact, they told my novice master, quote, if he gets out of line, send him to Walmart for a ball bat. As long as you don't swing at his head, he'll be fine. And I'm not kidding. He told my novice master to get a ball bat. I love my dad. We're called, though, to help, to call people out. Now, there also is the tradition in the monastery that fraternal correction, telling another he's wrong, should hurt the person offering the correction more than it hurts the person to hear the correction. In other words, we must always choose our words carefully, just as a person with a pruning saw does not recklessly go cutting at a tree or a vine, but makes deliberate cuts to accomplish the goal and to strengthen the plant rather than destroy it. We are called to be that person, as well as to cooperate with that pruning, to prune ourselves and to let God prune us, that we can go out and prune the church. Yes, it is always sad when people leave the church, when they commit formal apostasy and declare that they are leaving our fold. This week there was a report out of Germany that over 400 young people did just that. They sent letters to their pastors and their bishops saying they were done because the church refused to change, refused to follow, quote Joseph Ratzinger, the slogans of the modern age. I hate to say good, because it's not good. But hopefully, pruning away will help us be better saints, help us move forward. That's not to say the church should ever stagnate, no. As early as St. Vincent of Lérins in the 5th century, the Catholic Church has always held that we must grow. We must attain what's called profectus in Latin, organic growth, as an acorn becomes a mighty oak tree. But we must also be on guard against permutatio, mutation, cancerous change that disfigures and distorts. When we see cancerous change, we are called to prune, carefully, selectively, but to call others out. But more importantly, to call ourselves out. To prune evil from our own hearts, our own lives, first and foremost. So then, as saints of the church, as living witnesses of God, we can take that light, that breath, the rest of the church and the rest of the world.